In today's video, we'll be doing introduction to basic programming in Dart. So Dart is the programming language that the Flutter framework uses. So we have to cover a little bit of basics in that. If you haven't already watched the video of how to configure Flutter on Windows, you can check out the link in the description below. So let's get started. Okay, so we'll start by creating a new folder. So I'll create my folder on my desktop and I'll call it Dart. And inside my Dart folder, I'll be creating a Dart file and I'll call it new.dart. So I'll go to new file and then I'll type in new.dart and then click enter. Yeah. So we will be creating our main function here. So void main, our brackets, and then our curly braces. So this void main function is our main function of the Dart program. So if our code is not inside this main function, that means it's not going to work. So today we'll be printing something very basics, a word of type string. So string text, and then we assign it its value. So we'll be doing welcome to Dart. So welcome to Dart, and then we'll put our semicolon there. So as you can see, it is said that the local variable text is not used. So we'll be printing the variable text of data type string, which we have already assigned it welcome.dart. As you can see, and then you add a semicolon. After that, we will run it. So when I click run, I should see it printed in the debug console. As there it is, welcome to Dart. So let's kick it up a notch. So we'll be printing welcome to Dart 5 times. So see how it goes. We'll be using a for loop. So inside the loop, I'll have to declare an integer, and I'll call that integer I. So int I, then my semicolon. So you'll be using the value of I. So for I is equal to 1, which means that the starting value of I, which is an integer, is 1. So when I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to 5. That means that I will be between 1 and 5. So as long as this condition is satisfied, I is going to increase by 1. So I. So when we run it, we should see welcome to Dart printed 5 times. As you can see in the debug console there, we have it satisfied. So we are going to be using some user input statements. That means we are going to be taking inputs from the user and then we'll be using it in our code. So let's clear this and then start with it. So first we'll be printing some strings. So print, and then I'll write enter first number. So I'll be taking the number from the user. So enter first number, then I'll bring my semicolon, then I'll do the same thing. So I'll also add print second number. After that, we'll be adding the code that we'll be using to take the user input, or like the input from the user. So enter second number, then semicolon. So if you run it, you can see enter first number, enter second number, printed in the debug console. So you'll be adding a variable So it will be of type variable, so var, then first number. So this first is going to represent the variable, and then we are going to do int.pass, which means that we are going to pass the user input as type integer. So int.pass. Then what we use to accept user input in that is stdin.readLineSync. That is the code that we use. So stdin.readLineSync. So as you can see, there is a red line in stdin. So we'll be solving that. So let's finish this readLineSync, and then we'll bring our semicolon. So as you can see, there's an error saying undefined name stdin, so we have to hover on it. We are going to import something, so we go to quick fix, and it's right there, import library dat.io. So this dat library is going to help us take user input. So as you can see, there's still red line because there's a null value on it. This is a user input that we need, like the user to input a value before we can continue the program. So we have to make sure it's not nullable, and we do that by adding an exclamation mark. So we put an exclamation mark and the error is gone. So we'll be using this same thing for the second number. So I'll just copy everything on the line, and then I'll paste it under enter second number. So after I paste it, I'll change the first to second. So as you can see, it said that the local variable first and then the second is not used. So we are going to be using it now. So we'll be creating a new variable sum, and then we are going to add the first and second number. So var sum equal to, then we do first plus second. So the first is going to represent the number that the user will input for the first number, and the second is going to be the one that the user input from the second number. So first plus second, then we add our semicolon. Then we are going to print our sum. So you come to the next line, and then we'll print sum. Print sum. After that, we'll add our semicolon. Okay, so that is that for this code. So we are going to run it, and when we run it, we will see it in the debug console. But the debug console too, we can't input number there, so we'll be going to the terminal rather. So we are adding total number to this line. So if you input the sum like this, it becomes type string. So what we are going to do is add the $sign in front of the sum, so that we'll be able to call the variable, but also put it inside the string. So after I run it, I'll see enter first number. But in the debug console, you can't input a statement. So as you can see, when I try to input, I'll get an error. So what I'll do is I'll go to the terminal, and then I'll run the code from the terminal. So in the terminal, I'll be running that run. That's the code, that run. Then I'll input the file, and the file is called new.dat. So that run new.dat. So enter first number. So I'll enter 2, and then with our second number I'll be entering 3. So after I input the number, the code will run, and then the first and second number will be added. So after the first and second number is added, it will be associated with sum, and then the sum will be printed in the console. So as you can see, the total number is 5. So we are going to be working with classes too. So because I don't want to waste a lot of time, I've already done the coding, so I'll just be explaining it. So we have class Flutter, and the Flutter has type name and age, which is type integer, and country, which is type string. And we are going to give it a constructor, and with the constructor we are going to require the name, the age, and then this country. And then with the country, age, and name, we are going to give it a variable which will hold it. So I didn't change the names, I just used the same name, age, and country. And we are going to create a method for it. So the method will be the one which we will see in the console. So I'll call it void and then info, then print this exact same sentence. So I'll be using the name, age, and then the country along with the $signs in front, so that I'll be able to see the values in the console. Then I'll come and run it in my main my main function. So with the class Flutter, I'll assign it the value Flutter, but I used a smaller case there. So with the variables, when identifying it, you always have to use lowercase. So the Flutter requires the name, the age, and then the country. So I'll input these in there. And the name is type string, integer. The age is type integer. Australia is also type string. Then I'll invoke the info on the instance of Flutter. So when I run it, I'll be able to see, hello, my name is, and then the name, then the age, and then the country. So I'll be doing that run, and then new .dat, and then I'll press enter. As you can see, everything is printed in the console. But let's update it. Let's go back there, click run, and then let's copy the file, the code, and then paste it, and then run it again. As you can see, the C is capital, so the code has been updated. So this is the basics for that. We won't be doing much, since most of our codes will be widget based. Since most of our tutorials will be widget based, we won't be going deep into the Dart programming language. So this will be the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one, where we'll get started with the actual Flutter. And as I said earlier in the video, if you haven't configured Flutter, then follow the link in the description below. You get the video and follow it so that you can install Flutter on your machine. Also, these codes are in my GitHub repository, so you can follow that in the description below to see the codes. I'll see you in the next video.